Hi, Jeff here. I want to address this topic on bilingualism, bilingual families in Montreal. And there's an article about it from Concordia College. And I've got a good friend who's a linguist there at Concordia. We actually was there I was in Montreal for a week last summer. And I've got two linguist friends actually in Montreal. And I spent time talking to them about the bilingualism or the French identity thing in Montreal and across Canada, because I spent 3 months in Canada three weeks in Canada this past summer, and I wanted to get to know more as I saw this. Was there on vacation with the family, and so the article I first read, the introduction to that, and I thought it was saying that the parents would be favoring one language uh, over another. But actually, that's not what the article is saying. That's what I interpreted, thinking that it would be. But the article is more pointing to it's breaking families into families in Montreal, which is a French speaking situation primarily. It's a French speaking province in Canada, but has a lot of English influence, and even Ottawa is more extreme of what I can see. I mean, you could go back and forth in Ottawa. Both people had accents in both, right? Both languages. But I was thinking about and you get the families in Montreal could be categorized into four because of their level of the languages are going to be of different, they can have different levels. And so you've got some that can have both parents spoke both language all the time, or one parent speaks one language all the time, and the other parent speaks both language all the time, all that. And I've been through this with my kids, my kid's mom, and so our situation was a bit different, which is more representative of how it happens from what I've talked to a lot of bilingual couples over the past 40 years, right? Because I've lived through this whole situation of being bilingual and my kid's mom becoming bilingual, right? And that's how a lot of things, that's how it happens a lot. But you don't usually have the case where both parents are fully bilingual to the extent both of them are speaking both languages back and forth, right? I've never seen that. In fact, I've never seen where both in a couple, both of them are speaking only in their dominant language, their primarily dominant language, we'll call that, right? So I've never seen it where they're both speaking a different language back and forth, right? Because both of them know the other language. I've never seen that. I've always seen where they choose a language, right? And that becomes the stable ground. And that what they'll do is, and it's usually because they met each other in a context where it favored a language, right? Now this happens also in situations like where mine was, where I'd moved to France. I spoke French already, had a French degree. I spoke French fluently already. I moved here to work, and I met my future wife in French, and so I got to know their family in French, and all that. But when we got married, we moved back to the States. And that's where she learned English, and so that's where she became bilingual, right? Now, for us, what happens, we didn't have kids in the United States. We moved back to France, and that's where we made a choice of, and that's why it comes to this article, because I think the article makes a good point here, is that we both spoke to the children in our dominant language, right? So she didn't actually feel comfortable speaking to the kids in English, though she could speak in English at work, right? But for the children. So we chose the one parent language, though I can easily speak and had no problem speaking to the kids in French, and I do today. I mean, I still do. I don't know which language to speak to them now that they're young adults. But we did choose another factor, which comes back to what this article is pointing at, is the choice of amount of listening input that the children have. So the parents, let's say the article, that they will choose not to choose one parent, one language purely, which isn't really all completely, people don't do this in reality, but they choose based on the amount of input that the children have. And so if there's an imbalance, the parents will choose to give the other language some equal input, right, for the children. We found a different way to get around this, right, because when we were speaking, living in France, we knew that we talked about this. We said that the kids are going to go to French public schools. They're going to have all the French are going to be French speaking around us. We didn't. I wasn't really trying to keep my English American identity up with going to English speaking communities. Right. We did do this after the kids were a little bit older, but just to give some more variation to this and have the kids have more input. But we just said all screen time from the moment that they are babies must be so all the Teletubby stuff and all this stuff that you have the videos, the VHS cassettes, the DVDs, everything. We said that, and they became video games right afterwards, and YouTube and all that. We pushed the kids. Actually forced the kids to always do it in English, right? Because that was the language they're not getting enough input from. Because I'm at work, I'm off to the work all day long. I've got 4 hours train and subway stuff every day. So they're getting more French from mom, so they're going to give them more English. But the English wasn't from me. And we made sure that they had a lot of different dialects and stuff, and all the DVDs and the cassettes and that we had them watch. So, and then they started watching video. Get a video on YouTube, you get all the dialects, right? So the kids grew up with having that. So we made that we dealt with the imbalance ourselves, which is basically what the article is saying. It's just we found a different way to do it. Rather than have the parents do it, we made sure that the screen time allowed to do that. And kids grow up on screens. I mean, the TV, and now the kids in video games. That's actually made the kids. That's how the kids learn to read, because they're going to French public school. They learned to read because they couldn't read the instructions. So that helped them find a way to want to play the video game, was to actually learn how to read in English. So they spoke in English, right? Or they spoke passively in English. But the article, I think, is pointing to is it's saying that parents will do what's necessary on a case by case basis, and that's true. And keep in mind that all couples I've ever met, it's not this. Like I said, they're not both speaking each other's their own language to the other one all the time. They choose a language, right, for the home, and they're going to choose that in general. The only case where there's a situation where they're going to be different, which I've seen a lot, is you got a couple that will meet in a different country other than their own languages. So maybe a Polish person from Poland and someone from Korea meet in France, right? So they're going to both have come here because they want to speak French, right? But they might actually use English to communicate between themselves as their language, their bridge language, to speak together between Poland and Korea. But then when they grow up, the kids are going to learn French, right? So they're going to have 4 languages. And so you have to juggle that. So they're going to find ways to do this, whatever it may be. It might be the screen time topic. It might be how much speaking time they've got with the kids. It might be getting to know communities around, finding Polish communities and Korean communities in the same area is kind of, unless you're living in Paris, is really tough to do. So, this, they're going to juggle it with how they can to make sure that the kids have enough input. If they're sensitive to this topic, if they want to have the kids learn the language of each of the parents. Now, that's not always the case, and it kind of depends. So, but the article brings up some good things, and I think some other things to think about looking back are like Susanna Romain's book on bilingualism, and a lot. She did a lot of that. She had a lot of studies in this kind of area. So this isn't something that's brand new, but it's showing some more research. I think we also take into consideration the last point is that in up to my generation, I think my generation is the first one. A lot of people didn't travel a lot. They didn't go work abroad a lot before my generation. They tend to stay in their own country, right? But I think my generation, and now moving more recently, you've got a lot of people that are moving for 2-year stints and even longer, expats, and even longer. And that's what I did. I moved to France, and then we moved back to the States. We came to France, and I've been here ever since. So you've got a lot, but it has tended. I'm not saying this will be case. It's the case now with the more recent generations and further. It tended that the men were the men that tended to be the go-getters, sorry, and to go move abroad and stuff. So that's the language. The men will tend to the language of the woman, right? In general, in a couple like that, right? And So, so the woman is more comfortable in her home environment, family. Now, there are women, I'm not saying that women don't do this, but women are beginning to do this more recently in more recent generations. But I'm talking about the generational aspect. So the men tend to be the salespeople and all that kind of stuff. So you're going to see that representative in articles if they're doing any longitudinal study, but going backward, right? It will tend to be probably the men will adapt more to the women's situation. Now, I'm saying men and women. Now, this could be also same-sex couples, which is a more recent thing, right? So there's going to be a little bit of that comes into play. Um, and you've got women that are also more going out, they're studying more abroad, they're getting jobs more abroad. So now you're going to find that the women will be able to speak other languages too and to adapt to the situation of their partners, wherever they may be going and what their language they're going to meet people in. So this is it's a case by case basis. Parents make their decision what they're going to do, and I've been through this myself, but that's one situation, right? Through a lot of thought about how they would do this, and talking to a lot of families, a lot of couples that have been through this too, and how they did it, and so there's a lot of factors involved, and there's no one way to do it. And the problem with studies is that they have to take in consideration that this is a lot of these couples are making that decision in a case by case basis. Now, when you do it in a situation like Montreal, the bilingualism, high factor of language ability in both languages there, you're not going to get that in a lot of other countries where it'll be more monolingual, right? So, and even there, so I mean, this comes in play, and I think parents are making a decision what's best for the kids and gives their kids the most opportunity. And you got to think of the language erosion, languages disappearing, and all that. How much the parents are wanting to give their kids the opportunity to learn their own language. That's another factor. That's a whole other series of videos, right? But at least this covers a lot of things that are. I think it's a really interesting topic, and it's a lot about language choice, language identity, and that comes to play. And even I could make a whole other video about how my children and I have adjusted in our language behavior between ourselves, even with them. I'll speak more in French now than I did in English because there's no need for them to learn the English now, right? It's because they got it. So a lot of interesting things on this topic. Thanks for bringing it up.